Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we kick this off, I would like to point out to the audience that we welcome questions. Please post them in the Q&A section during today's discussion, and we will address those at the conclusion. So I'd now like to turn this over to Steven Saltzstein, Force Family Office's CEO.
Thank you, Callie, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a fascinating discussion, and it couldn't be more pertinent with the start of football season, both the NFL and the college season. And the last thing I just want to say is, if you're looking to assess management teams, look no further than Lori Silver, because she has been personally touched, and this is what drove her to find, these solutions, these cures. She had a child that had an issue, and as they say, hell hath no fury like a mother scorned, that she went out there and single-handedly, found this solution and is going to revolutionize all of CNS. So it is my great pleasure to welcome Lori and Mike and Miles as well. Lori, to begin with, if you don't mind, can you just take 10 minutes and talk about the company and what you guys do? And yeah.
Sure, I'd love to. And thank you for that introduction, Steve. So Brainscope is a commercial staged neurotechnology company, and we are creating powerful new biomarkers of brain health by leveraging the power of brain electrical activity, also known as EEG. So EEG has been a very underutilized technology in the past because it has relied on visual inspection of brain waves. And it's really not possible for the human eye to see the fine differences between healthy and sick. So it's primarily been used for issues that have a very large signal, like a seizure. At Brainscope, we're applying AI to decipher the EEG in ways that could never be done before. We were actually the very first AI-enabled medical technology to receive FDA clearance in the entire field of neurology. As of today, we have commercialized our first 3 FDA-cleared biomarkers for traumatic brain injury. They're being used both to rule out brain bleeds, as well as for the first time objectively assessing concussion, because your brain waves don't lie. With this commercial product, we're generating revenues. We're in major hospital health system emergency departments, concussion clinics, personal injury clinics, and sports markets, and we're getting ready for a major international launch in the fall. In these markets, we're being used for rapid triage and referral to therapy, as well as tracking over time through recovery to help inform when the people are ready to go back to sports or to normal activity. We've had incredible outcomes for these biomarkers published by our customers. Those include 50% reduction in unnecessary head CT scans, substantial reduction in patient length of stay in emergency departments, and very high levels of both patient and provider satisfaction. With this great response, as of this summer, we had already exceeded our full year 2024 revenues, and we're on track for 50% year-over-year growth. With the development, regulatory, and commercial success of these biomarkers for brain injury, we now have a pipeline of new indications in development as well. So just taking a step back, there is a need for better biomarkers of brain health across the board. And that gets to what you were saying before with my son, where there weren't any tests that could be done. The advanced imaging that's often used, like MRIs and PET scans, are very expensive, they're radiation producing, they're not easily accessible, and importantly, they don't see issues until there's structural damage done to the brain, which may not be possible to fix. Blood biomarkers are promising, but they are challenging for the brain because there are limits from the blood-brain barrier. EEG is a great solution. It is quick, inexpensive, accessible, and importantly, it's sensitive to the earliest signs of brain dysfunction before structural damage occurs, which makes it visible on that imaging. So we're using a combination of both machine learning and deep learning AI methodologies, which really extends our opportunities to develop these powerful biomarkers. Machine learning is where experts in quantitative EEG inform the model of what features of EEG are likely of interest, whereas deep learning is building off the backs of large language models, but instead of training on all the text and images on the internet, it is training on large models of EEG features. Both of these methodologies can incorporate other biomarkers, imaging, blood, clinical data, any other information that there is on a patient. And that's important because experts in the field agree there's likely no one-size-fits-all solution with respect to which of these are best for any particular indication. So there's really a need for a platform like ours that can identify and combine the best biomarkers for truly personalized medicine.
So we spoke about concussion, but so what are some of the other indications you're going after?
Yeah, so we've got a really incredible pipeline. So stroke is a really exciting near-term opportunity. There's a saying in stroke, time is brain. And that's because it's imperative that the patient get diagnosed within an hour or two of the stroke. We have demonstrated the utility of our FDA-cleared brain bleed algorithm for rapid stroke assessment. So without training an algorithm for stroke, not only do we have very high sensitivity to distinguish stroke from stroke mimics, but our published results show that we may actually be more sensitive to ischemic stroke than a CAT scan, which is huge. In our study, those patients with ischemic stroke who were originally negative on the CAT scan, but later found ischemic stroke on an MRI, we identified 80% of those patients as a stroke when the CAT scan was negative. And with these incredible results, we're now in discussions with the highest tier health systems, Mayo Clinic, Hopkins, Cleveland Clinic, about co-development of a stroke assessment product with a development plan of about 24 months. Another interesting opportunity is Alzheimer's, and there's really two opportunities there. So first is early diagnosis. If you can diagnose Alzheimer's before structural damage occurs to the brain, again, what you would see on a PET scan or an MRI, it can have profound benefits because it's so difficult to heal the brain once the structural damage occurs. We completed development of an initial biomarker to predict who will go on to develop cognitive decline based solely on someone complaining about their memory. And we were able to identify those patients 5 to 7 years before they were diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which is the first stage before getting to an Alzheimer's diagnosis. So this is before it's being picked up by any other modality. This was funded by one of the largest Alzheimer's foundations, and we're waiting to hear back, hopefully in the next month or two, about funding for phase 2 of that. The other side of Alzheimer's is there's something called ARIA, which is the side effect caused by the only 2 Alzheimer's drugs on the market. So the way those drugs work is they remove amyloid plaque from the brain. And when they do that, they're creating these micro tears, which can cause brain bleeds or edema, which is brain swelling, in about 30% of the patients. The ARIA can be fatal. They usually aren't, but they can be. And because of that, any patients who take these drugs need 4 MRIs in 6 months to make sure that they're not developing the ARIA. And as you would expect, the drug companies have sorely missed their projections for these drugs because people don't want to have to go through that. So better biomarkers like those using EEG can really help not only improve the safety profile, but reduce the need for so many invasive and burdensome MRIs.
So can you talk about the value proposition? So first of all, I'd love for you to summarize the value proposition just in a couple sentences, and then talk to me about who are you actually selling to, and in their minds, what's the ROI? Is it just that you're greatly reducing expenses in the hospital? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so to summarize the value proposition, I would say by transforming the EEG into AI-driven diagnostics and predictors of future brain health, we're really enabling faster, more accessible, and more cost-effective assessment of brain health. We've got a scalable platform that supports development of multiple products. Each of them has significant commercial upside in enormous addressable markets. And they also deliver strong clinical impact. So for investors, this is really a true double bottom line opportunity to be part of a company with the ability not only to make a lot of money, but to substantially impact patients' lives and livelihoods. And then as far as the value proposition, so for our brain bleed and concussion algorithms, there's huge value. So there's actually two different use cases. For the brain bleed algorithm, the ability to rule out a brain bleed without a CAT scan is huge, particularly in areas where CAT scans are not as easily available. So in the US, less exciting because there's CAT scans in almost every hospital. But when you look at the international markets, CTs are not as readily available, and we have a real opportunity with our proven outcomes. We've shown the device works. We've shown that doctors and patients like it, and we've shown that we have incredible outcomes, including 50% reduction in the need for head CTs in this patient population, and substantial decreases in length of time in the emergency department. They literally go from hours to minutes. So that's for the brain bleed. For concussion, the huge market is obviously sports. And we've got some great reference customers with major sports college football teams. We are one of the uses of funds for our next round growth financing is to create an ultra low cost product that will really open up access to those markets. It's different when you're looking at sports versus traditional healthcare systems where they're billing to insurance companies and getting reimbursed using existing CPT codes. When you go outside of those areas, you really need to bring the cost down where cost is not a factor for them purchasing it, and really have the opportunity to access these broad markets.
And so how are you able to do that? How are you able, for instance, to work on developing a low-cost system? And is it because you were the first to use AI in CNS? And so really the heart of the product is software, not hardware?
Yeah, I mean, the hardware, it's really two things. It's our ability to acquire the data, but importantly, the hardware brings us to locations where EEG doesn't traditionally exist.
Right.
Sports locations, obviously there's no EEG. Many clinics don't have EEG. And even hospital emergency departments, it can take a long time to call in an EEG technician and put on the traditional EEGs, and they don't have that amount of time in emergency departments. So by having this proprietary device, it really enables our growth, well, even though it's not the secret sauce of what we do. We've already got plans to take the cost way down. We've got our own dedicated device today. It doesn't need to be. It can be an app that goes to an existing phone or tablet with reusable pop-in electrodes that really take a lot of the costs out. So that's how we get to there.
So you were the first company to get FDA approval incorporating AI for a CNS cure. How long ago was that?
That was about 12 years ago.
Could the FDA even spell AI back then? Like, how did they even know what you were talking about?
It was interesting. We got the de novo classification using an EEG-enabled device. At the time, we didn't appreciate that we were the first in all of neurology. But it took time. We worked hard to get to it, and I think we did. It really helped us and helped inform them. And through the years, we've actually acquired 8 FDA clearances, so we were able to get changes to our indications for use, to add on the device, the headset, and then all 3 of our existing biomarkers for brain bleed and concussion assessment.
So is that all your technical moat? Like, is that how what you're doing is defensible?
That's not all of it. We've got a huge patent portfolio. We have 83 issued patents globally.
Right.
And I would say, our methodologies and know-how, we have figured out how to crack the code. Each EEG has about 10,000 features. And there are different features that are impacted by different indications. A stroke is going to impact someone differently than Alzheimer's will impact them. So we've been able to, with our methodology, apply it to all of these different disease states and figure out, the best way to create, to create the algorithms to develop these biomarkers. I'll give you one interesting example. It was published in JAMA last year. So for concussion clinicians know that not all concussions are the same. They don't present the same, they don't recover the same, but they're all called a concussion and they're all told to do the same thing. We had a $10 million DoD research contract to develop our concussion index across 50 high schools and colleges. And we're able to enroll thousands of patients. In a post hoc study, we were able to identify within the EEG 5 distinct subtypes of concussion. It was the first physiological demonstration of the existence of subtypes. It was not based on what someone's symptoms were. You were actually able to see it within the body. And those 5 subtypes actually did map with presentation and with length of time to recovery. So when you can get more precise like that, that really leads to precision medicine. And using that methodology, we can apply it to all different types of CNS indications. When you're talking about neurodegenerative disease, everyone knows not all dementia is the same, not all ALS is the same.
Right.
They actually think there are thousands of subtypes of ALS, and we've got this methodology that we can apply and really help.
Have you guys bothered to value your IP portfolio? I mean, it seems like it would be worth tremendous amount of money.
There was a third-party assessment done a few years ago, and it was valued I think it was, are we allowed to say, Miles?
Yeah, it was valued in tens and hundreds of millions. It was highly valued.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all. Yeah, listen, that's the benefit of being first.
And we really focused on each part of the value chain. We really focused on staking out fundamental IP positions because we were so early. It wasn't about volume of patents, which is misleading. It's really more about fundamental patents and things that are really meaningful. And now we're hard at work on doing that in the extension of our platform to the deep learning. And we have a real history and legacy of being smart about being first to market and staking out IP, which is important. Although I will say, to Lori's point, the knowledge of how to deal with the EEG signal in terms of IP, there's just a ton of know-how, trade secrets, history that really go into each of the markets we go after. So there's a nice combination of patents, but also methodology, know-how, software, process that really makes us into a platform, which we really are for the development of biomarkers for brain health, multimodal, which I think also was a nice point that Lori made. It's not just about EEG, and deep learning is really an interesting platform to be able to tokenize all different types of modalities, whether it's clinical, whether it's eye movement, whether it's blood, and be able to integrate those into your algorithms, and then over time decide how, what's optimal. So all that stuff is ongoing, and all that stuff lends itself to more IP and more defensible positions. Not only for offense, but we know that the AI space is going to be crowded. We think we're first to market. We think we're in the upper right-hand quadrant of companies playing, in this space. But we know that there's a lot of activity in this. So making sure you've staked out a patent position that gives you freedom to operate in the midst of a crowded IP field is just as important as being in a position to be offensive. On the TBI side of things, we are in an
Miles, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Or maybe it's a Lori question. What is the hardest evidence you have that Brainscope works better than standard of care?
Do you want to answer that, Miles? Do you want me
No,
to
you should go ahead and we have lots of evidence. Go ahead, Lori.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, we were the first to receive FDA clearance, but that's not the evidence that it works. For our first indication, we've demonstrated both in multiple peer-reviewed studies. We've got 35 peer-reviewed publications, which is a lot for a company of our stage, as well as publications from major health systems the reduction of about 50% in unnecessary CAT scans, the substantial decreases in wait times, and the high levels of patient and provider satisfaction. Beyond brain injury, we have evidence for other brain indications as well. We have demonstrated that we can substantially reduce time to stroke diagnosis, and that we may be more sensitive than a CAT scan to identify ischemic stroke. And we've demonstrated that we can predict who will go on to develop Alzheimer's disease earlier than any other diagnostic.
Just intuitively, and this was actually why I got involved with Brainscope early on. Intuitively, almost all pathologies are going to mess around with brain electrical activity. So if you think of, and because you don't have to worry about the blood-brain barrier. So instinctively, you know that EEG is going to be a really important source of diagnostic stuff. And really, it's been a journey to prove that we can tease apart information from the signal. As an investor, one of the things that I really looked at was what happened with the EKG signal. How did you take what seemed like a simple signal, heartbeat, and you can see how the more sophisticated you are about teasing information out, the more diagnostic you are of more things. And brain is infinitely more complex. So we've got this very, very rich signal that it's not surprising bad things in your body affect your brain electrical activity. And with more and more technology, more and more data, we just get more sensitive to discriminating more variation in a brain signal. And so we're more sophisticated as a diagnostic capability. That was the basic investment premise that a lot of the family offices that invested in the company really signed on to, was brain electrical activity as a diagnostic modality with the evolution of technology, machine learning, large neural learning. A lot of our family offices were early investors in speech recognition, early applications of neural net. And that was the bet with a really interesting team. And it's proven good. It just took a long time and complicated. But I think we're at a good proof point now.
I'm going off menu with this, but I just want to, I'm willing, I don't know, I think it's your patent portfolio could be applicable to all of these brain interfaces now, right? They're all of these machine brain interfaces, like what Elon Musk is developing, and I know 20 other companies that are doing it now for different indications. It's all electrical. It's all a matter, and so yeah, it's interesting that I bet there's upside in that patent portfolio for those things as well. So anyway. So you've already started generating revenue. Talk to me about the tipping point in revenue. Where is that going to come from?
Yeah, so we already have revenue from our concussion and brain bleed products, and this will become more meaningful with our next generation device development. So bringing on the low cost device, as I said earlier, will really open up the sports and international markets. I would think stroke is the next meaningful market. We hear very loudly from our ED customers that this is a huge need. We already have the device, so it's a matter of developing the biomarkers, and then it's a simple software update to add those biomarkers to our device that's already out in the field. So, we've got a 24-month development plan to submit to FDA, so we could really have a blockbuster product on the market within the next 3 years.
And is that like ultimately going to be, because you're more software focused than hardware focused. So is that ultimately going to be a subscription model, or what does that revenue look like?
Yeah, it can be a subscription model. It really depends on the market and how they're purchasing it. So today we're selling it, it's a razor blade model. It's a one-time, it's a device and then one-time use disposable headsets. With the next product, there'll be reusable, headsets as well. And then that does really open up the SaaS market and pay per use and pay per indication. So that is definitely on our roadmap, as well as the opportunity to take EEG from any third-party device. We're doing that today as well. There is no reason we need to use our device. As I said, it really opens up markets for us, so it's helpful to have it. But we've also been able to show that we can take EEG from any other source, run it through our platform to either develop new biomarkers or apply our existing biomarkers to EEG collected elsewhere.
Right. So if you think about, the neurodegenerative disease biomarker market, and you say to yourself, what do we do? Early on, we're in a position to help enroll clinical trials, scan patients, and begin to identify whether they're going to move on with Alzheimer's. That's a huge value. And then, of course, to track patients and then to be tracking patients when there are therapeutics being given. But all of those tests, those will be done by a neurologist in their office using potentially a standard EEG. We're a complete SaaS-based solution, right? You do the EEG, the information sent up to the cloud. By the time the patient gets to the doctor's office, it's been processed and you have a result. And you can do it as often as you want. Now, with a lot of the drugs and the neurodegenerative disease, you've got to do PET scans and MRIs and CAT scans. So we're in a position to do as many of these as you want. There's really no marginal cost in doing repeat brain scopes when you're operating. And so it plays into a pure SaaS-based, high-margin business with lots of value propositions to help enroll clinical trials, all of those things. So that business model is really good and doesn't depend on the device at all.
Can we talk about possible exits? Who do you think are like the most likely buyers for this company?
So let me take that real quickly. There are a couple of different ways to think about an exit for the company. There clearly is an IPO, SPAC kind of play here for the company in due course, and organic growth and manage across the biomarkers and do more and more. But put that aside for a second. That's a clear possibility, and we actually have built a board and a team, and we know how to scale businesses and take them public and manage consolidators in the industry. And so there is a trajectory like that we could go down. But there are also clear opportunities for large companies that want to buy a biomarker development platform, which we are, with a real good clinical pipeline. So we see those kinds of acquisitions happening all the time. Pipelines are acquired with a unique platform that supports those with clear clinical development pathways for the pipeline. So you know where you are. And one of our strategies is to make sure we mature each element of our pipeline so that we're demonstrating the robustness of what we're doing. And so you could easily see large pharmaceutical companies working in neurodegenerative disease, wanting the platform and the people, and to internalize that inside. You also could see us doing outright sales of markets. So, for example, the TBI market, in many respects, especially with stroke bolted in, is different than a neurodegenerative disease. So we've had early discussions from time to time about either doing an exclusive license or potentially just selling the TBI business early on as an early liquidity event for a market. That's clearly a possibility, and thinking about our markets as being separated out. We're sort of open to, we've got a good board, we're sophisticated about this stuff. We'll have to see which way it goes. And then of course, there's always does a clinical pipeline sort of reduce itself to one or two things that are working and look like they're the most viable and important commercial thing. And you could see focusing a business more narrowly than the big pipeline. But we're 24 months out, I think, from really thinking about liquidity, it feels to me, with some big strategic deals along the way where we have partners that are helping to finance the development of our pipeline.
And I would add to that, because you had asked, what types of acquirers they might be. There's so many different types of categories of potential acquirers. We're not just a traditional med device, hardware, selling company, where some of the major medical device companies would be interesting. But the EEG manufacturers are interesting. Brain computer interface, which you had mentioned, they're implanting electrodes on the brain. We're sitting on top of the forehead. Digital health and AI companies. So other companies applying AI to health, but using different modalities. So for example, there's a company called Tempus, which is doing digital pathology. Their market cap today is $13 billion. And then there's the therapy devices. And then there's biotech or pharma or clinical research organizations, because we also have the opportunity to really help bring down the costs and the time to conduct the clinical trials. For example, talking about our prediction algorithm for who will go on to develop Alzheimer's. These Alzheimer's clinical trials cost about $300 million each. And a big part of the cost is because they don't know who will go on to decline. So they have to power these studies with so many patients to make sure they have the appropriate N at the end. If we enable them to have a better sense of who the right patients are to enroll in the study in the first place, that could be very meaningful for them to be able to take down the time and the costs and decrease the risk of these clinical studies. And also provides them a biomarker where they can track the patients over time through the trial, see what the outcomes look like, and use it as an outcomes measure as well.
Which is sort of an interesting segue into the growth financing that's coming down the road, because when you look at what we're doing, there are so many logical strategic partners for us across the value chain. Even a company like Apple, if you think about consumer health, with parents being able to check concussion or cognitive decline. So what it says to you is, in the short term, we're going to be a very heavy corporate development business. We're going to be doing deals across the value chain with major players to move our pipeline forward, to explore different markets. We're not going to manufacture headsets. We're going to get a partner. We're not going to do international distribution. So a big use of funds in the growth financing is going to be investment in the kind of corporate development, partner support, evolve us into a little more of a user-friendly platform so many different players can be on top of it. So the next couple of years is one in which we're building partnerships and we're building value across our pipeline in partnership with major players. And then to Lori's point, whether it's the exit on the device side to the Medtronics of the world, or, there's lots of ultimate exits. But the next couple of years, we've really got work to do in the trenches to add value to the pipeline and the platform.
Yeah, let me jump in here, Stephen, because I want to just give a perspective to what we're talking about with respect to would-be strategics that might be interested in the technology. If you just look at healthcare and you look at the hospital segment for a moment, most of the needed vital sign technologies, whether it's EKG for the heart, pulse oximetry, which measures blood oxygenation, all of these companies and technologies started out with an acquisition unit that fed into some software and gave you a reading and an indication, whether it was a trend or an absolute. But what was really exciting is, as those technologies became more robust, as more software advances were made, they became more software systems where it was no longer trying to sell the hardware. Now other companies wanted their board or chip or software to run inside their device. A little bit of an Intel Inside kind of example, where if you have differentiated software, these algorithms that can help, whether it's speeding up clinical trials or early identification of Alzheimer's through a biomarker, or stroke through the amount of blood in the brain, now you want those software systems to be incorporated in your offering. And I think what's exciting about Brainscope is they're out in front right now with a platform that enables a variety of biomarkers that'll fill a pipeline that will give us the opportunity to not just go to market with a product set, which is available, but will give us the opportunity to talk to a number of companies that want to incorporate sophisticated EEG modeled software systems into their systems. And I think that's how we need to think about the platform and what it really means for the company and the marketplace.
Man, that was well said. So you're never going to see us building a large direct sales force into any of these markets. We'll be incorporated in products of companies that have sales forces. I mean, we've built the company to be operated leanly with respect to commercialization, being able to do it on an OEM and on various different bases with major partners in the different markets from the beginning. That's how we've looked at this.
Let's go to audience questions because I don't want to miss out on those.
Okay.
Callie, take it away.
Sure, thank you. Are there any ongoing discussions with the FDA about expanding indications or receiving additional clearances?
So we are not currently in discussions with FDA. We are currently in discussions with several major strategic partners about starting the development of these products, and we will partner with them to go to FDA together, which will help strengthen our opportunity there.
We do have, and this is again one of the nice uses of the growth funds, in addition to the new indications for Alzheimer's and stroke and whatnot, we have a very clear understanding from all the work we've done in the market already about how to evolve the algorithms in the TBI marketplace in terms of applicability of age, in terms of time to test for longitudinal tracking, and for some ability to increase some of the specificity. So in the use of proceeds in the growth financing, there is not only continued work on new indications that go to the FDA, but also the evolution of our current approvals with the FDA. So all that's pretty well laid out in the plan.
Great. And can you differentiate Alzheimer's from other causes of dementia?
We should be able to, absolutely. And as I mentioned, we've got the ability to subtype different indications, and Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. So it's all about access to data. The more data we have, the better our algorithms are. We were already able to distinguish who will go on to develop mild cognitive impairment, which is the first diagnosed stage of dementia. But we can take that all the way through Alzheimer's, Lewy body disease, other types of dementia as well.
And the beauty of large language model, or in our case, large neural model technology, is those kinds of queries to differentiate and look at where there's separation in the data, that can all be done very, very rapidly. That's the beauty of what we've built. You can actually query it with those kinds of questions. Can you distinguish between these things and these things? And it's a very fast process of being able to do that, as opposed historically to machine learning, which is a little more custom fitting of the lines to the data. And this is really it'll be very interesting to see our ability to rapidly do that kind of differentiation with the platform.
Great. And this is kind of on the heels of that. Synaptic loss, which correlates with cognitive decline in Alzheimer's, can be detected through activity-induced EEG. Have you explored that relationship with SV2A PET?
With PET. So we currently have two opportunities to explore our relationship of Brainscope with PET scans for Alzheimer's. So I had mentioned that we believe that we've got a good chance of identifying these ARIA, the little brain bleeds caused by removing amyloid plaque. And we are in discussions with executive teams at pharma companies. We are looking at our own study where we are working with a radiology and gerontology group who are assessing patients to go on these drugs. And we're looking at how Brainscope correlates with PET, CT, MRIs, blood, all the markers that they're collecting. And then with the project, phase 2 project that we are anticipating to receive from the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation, that will be a much bigger study to show how we correlate with all of the other biomarkers being used today.
If the question it was hard for me to tell, but if it was asking about what we refer to as evoked potential, that is, actively inducing response of the brain. We actually have looked at evoked potential as a modality and in different contexts. I'm not sure in exactly this context, but the notion of evoked potential as another feed of data into our system is clearly something that we've looked at and have used in different places. May even have some patents around evoked potential. I can't remember. But the nice thing about the platform we're building is we can tokenize anything. We can tokenize all different types of data, all different types of modalities. So when you look at bespoke trials, such as maybe the question is sort of asking, it's very easy for us to do bespoke trials. Try this, use this data, use these sets of modalities. What do you see? So that's part of the beauty of all these next generation large language models that are going to be coming to market soon.
Thank you. How well has your technology been received by practicing neurologists and neurosurgeons?
So it's interesting because that actually isn't the market that we've been selling to today. Our brain bleed algorithms are used for mild traumatic brain injury. So if someone comes to the hospital and they're already unconscious, they don't need a Brainscope. They need to go straight to a CT. This is for patients who are walking and talking and the doctor's not sure. And the only way to rule out a brain bleed today before Brainscope is by giving them a CAT scan. So that's really the patient population. So the doctors that we're working with are actually emergency medicine physicians.
Great.
But
And then
remember,
go ahead.
There always, because we go back over a decade now, there always was black box resistance to AI in diagnostics early on. And that was one of the issues with getting through the FDA. How do you demythologize or demystify how it works? So there always was skepticism about using AI-enabled products to replace human diagnostics. That was 10 years ago. So this is a nice zeitgeist investment in that respect, because now there's increasing acceptance day after day after day on the utility and reliability of these kinds of products in these kinds of settings, of course, coming together with the need to focus on cost and throughput and whatnot. So I think what we're going to see is increasing acceptance of these kinds of products by experts that historically would have been pretty resistant to it. And of course, as the next generation of doctors hit the market, they're going to have grown up with these kinds of technologies. So I think we're in a good phase of adoption cycle now. So again, I think timing is all in these things. And, you know, we managed to stay at the table for over a decade to get to the point sort of where we are now. But I think that issue is largely going to be behind us.
And so how long does the actual test take?
Yeah, it's just 10 to 15 minutes from the start of application to results. So the application itself takes a couple minutes. The EEG acquisition is, 2 to 5 minutes, and then there are a few questions that are asked. Very easy to train as well. Can be done by the lowest level technician with 30 minutes of training.
And have you secured partnerships with hospitals, military, sports leagues to help drive early adoption?
All of them, yes. So on the hospital side, we've got one group, the Adventist Health System out in California. They have now set up 10 hospitals out there, and they've been a great role model for that market. On the military side, we just completed a study with a naval base. So military is interesting. When someone hits their head on base, they are required by DHA mandate to be followed up by primary care within 72 hours. The problem is there's no primary care doctors who have availability within 72 hours. And they need to go through this step before they get referred to the traumatic brain injury center on base. So it is taking them 2 weeks to just get to the TBI clinic when they should be getting there much more quickly. So this study, they used Brainscope's brain function index. For those who were likely concussed, they just sent them straight to the TBI clinic, and they had excellent results where they were able to show that they substantially decreased the time for these patients to get targeted care. And they're now publishing that to share within the military. And then on the sports side, We recently signed for a pilot with the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship. I'm not able to talk to the details of how they will be using it, but they are doing that pilot, and we are in discussions with 2 other major sports leagues today about how they might be able to use it as well.
And, you know, I'd mention in this regard that we received $30 million of non-dilutive funding from the military to really develop and do the clinical trials. So we've gotten substantial economic support from the military in terms of development along the way. And we've tucked in a little money along the way from the NFL and GE, some of the other players interested in head injury.
Thank you. Are there any reimbursement codes in place for the device? And what's the expected margin per use?
Yeah, so we don't have our own codes, but our customers have been successful using existing EEG and neurocognitive tests CPT codes. Our margins are about 70%. And then the customer margins, they're making money, but it's interesting because they're not just concerned about making money. They're also concerned about, the benefits that they're getting as far as patient satisfaction, which is something that they're rated on, getting patients out more quickly, and reducing radiation is also something that they're trying to avoid. So they're making money as well.
Great. And the last question can you explain your revenue model? Is it based on device sales or reoccurring software subscriptions?
Yeah, so today it's primarily device and headset sales. And in the future, as Miles had explained, we are likely going to be moving to a SaaS model where we're able to charge per use. And it just frees up the need to charge based on something that's shipped out.
Okay, great. And then actually one last question is, can you discuss what it is you're looking for in a raise?
Sure. This is a family office round. In parallel, we just started a 10 to 15 million growth round process. We wanted to start after Labor Day, given the summer is notoriously slow for institutional investors. This family office round is an extension of our existing investor round at the same terms that our existing investors have had. So we're tucking in the last couple of $1 million now as we put things in place to get ready for the institutional investment. So it'll allow us to flesh out our management team, make progress on all of these various business development deals that are in process, and then continue building momentum towards that growth financing. So the current availability, we've got about $3 million currently available. Our existing investors are participating in it as well. It is a $35 million pre-money valuation, and we believe it's pretty favorable considering all of the proof points that we have hit. The minimum initial investment for a new investor is $250,000. Yeah, we're looking to close this over the next month or two and really focus on the growth financing.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining today. For everyone in the audience, if you have additional questions or you'd like to be connected to Brainscope, everyone has my email address. I'm happy to facilitate that introduction. A couple have already just reached out to me, so I will be following up with that. But I do want to turn it back over to you, Lori, for any final words before we close out today.
Thank you. Well, we really appreciate the opportunity to present this to you today. We're excited about the opportunity to bring in family offices. All of our investors today are family office, high net worth individuals. And we appreciate the fact that we can do well together and also really help a lot of patients. And that's something that I always lead with. To me, it is so meaningful to have this opportunity to really bring something that is so needed to the market. Everywhere I go, I hear that there's a sore need for better biomarkers. I was just at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference last month. And that was all everyone was talking about. There are a lot of issues with the ones that are currently out there. CNS is currently reimbursing for very expensive PET scans and MRIs, and that's not going to continue. And they need cheaper, more accessible biomarkers that can really expand, all of the CNS indications. We're a first mover, and I think we've got an incredible opportunity to do that. And hope to bring you all along with us.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great day.